Hello. I wanted to talk about today, as I've started kind of this video series, and it got me thinking. It all sparked with a couple of comments in a different video. I would get comments about, hey, what do you do for a living? Do you make videos? Are you a YouTuber? Do you work for Lasco? Are you work with antiques and you make that? No, it's just a hobby. It is just a guy with a nerdy hobby, and wanted to just kind of share it and hopefully find like people out there to kind of learn from, right? So when people ask me what I do for a living, I hem and I haw like about talking about it. But as I open up a little bit more, I thought, why not? Maybe there's something there that we can learn from each other, and that's what this is about. This community. So I started talking about in other videos, but just really quickly. So I'm a business executive. I'm a CEO / president for the company I work for. And I found my way, it wasn't that easy, but I found myself in this position ultimately because I took this sales route, right? I'm a business major from school, but I thought to get into this, the business world, what's my entry point? So I chose sales because sales jobs, like, you don't need any qualification. Like, you can get an entry level sales job. You can, basically those were the most plentiful jobs out of school. So I thought, let me get good at that, maybe get into management and work my way. And that's ultimately what happened, right? However, what's funny is being in this position, people assume like, oh, you must have been, like, when I tell them the story I just told you, oh, you must have been born to sell. You must have been good. You must have been really awesome. Like, just born to sell. No, it's horrible. Awful. Awful, awful, awful. Didn't make me a bad kid. Didn't make me someone who didn't have any work ethic. Quite frankly, I knew I wasn't good. That's the thing. I knew what I was, and I tried to outwork it. Like, I tried to just outwork it. I must have read every book. So let me talk about how bad I was first. So I sat in a cubicle, and I talk a little bit about this in another video, but that diverts into a different subject. And I sat in a cubicle with a phone, a tower computer. This is early 2000s, and I sold software. And my goal was, when I thought, oh, how do I get into, like, what markets do I want to get into, or industry for sales? And I thought, either pharma, because the baby boomer population is getting older and older, it's just going to grow, or like computers or software technology, right? Because that's just going to obviously grow as well. So the irony is I'm in both today. As of 2024, well, I've been in both now for a decade and a half. But going back to then, I didn't really have any formal sales training. I was trained on the technology, the software I was selling, and I basically would call and leave voice messages. Account management was kind of like my first kind of role, and my task was to sell customers and upgrade to the newest version. It was it was B2B order management software. I think it still exists today, and different company owns it, different people there, all different. But you basically had a features list with a definition of each feature, and I would call, I would get voicemail. Probably people don't want to talk to me, and I would leave this like long voice message and say something like, with the new version of the software, we have over 150 new features available, like integrated UPS shipping, or automatic inventory, or special shipping calculations, whatever it would be. And I, so bad, so bad. But in fairness, looking back, like, entry level position, like, they're paying me, I think I was getting paid like 40 grand a year or something, which is, like, at that time I thought was a lot of money. in fairness, you get what you pay for, right? So like they throw somebody out there who probably did well in the interview, worked in retail a little bit, and said, okay, we can coach this guy or we can get him to do something. So that was that. And I, with the account management side, I did okay because I could form a relationship because they knew our software already and they would ask me questions on how to do certain things. And so I would get credible there, but just pure selling, not good. And then when I would have to sell the new business, they counted each deal. They called it a system. If you sold a system, I was always at the bottom of the list. And if I got lucky, kind of thing. And I realized I was not good. I thought sales would be kind of easy. Like, oh, I have something that people want to buy. I'll tell them about it and they'll buy it. Like, I just really thought it was that easy. I guess in certain industries it might be, but it was not. So I was frustrated with myself, but I liked the idea of selling software. I really believed in the software that we were selling to help small businesses automate. Like, it was really believed in it, and I got to talk to so many different types of businesses, small businesses. So I'm typically talking to the owner, and it could be a wine seller to somebody who sells anything. Basically anyone who sells anything online and or has inventory. So catalogers, like our audience was catalogers who were looking to move from paper catalog to online. Again, this is like early 2000s, and I know in the 90s that stuff really started happening. So it was fun, like hearing people talk to you about their business. And that's where my business brain came in, and that's where I got. Once I would talk to somebody, it was pretty good because I could understand their process, make suggestions, so I became a little bit more of like an advisor. So that started to give me some traction. But at the same time, I knew I wasn't good in pure sales. Like if I'm talking to a new customer, just saying, oh, what do you do? Oh, we can help automate your, okay. So I started with Jeffrey Gitomer. If those of you who are in sales, I recommend his books. He is not a sales process type of guy. He's more of a common sense type of guy. Lots of experience. I got to see him one time in a seminar he did. This is going back to early 2000s, but he's still out there today. So has his YouTube channel, social media channels, still out there, just a little older. But he had authored quite a few books. Typically his books are, the little red book of this, the little gold book of that, the little green book of this. I owned them all. I read them, I would study them, and that's only one part of it, right? The other part of it was I would try to apply what he was talking about. And I started to notice some differences, right? Like I started to say, oh, I'm getting people's attention. I'm holding a conversation with somebody a little bit longer. And my manager, no one told me to go do this, but it's just kind of like, if you're an athlete and you are getting shoved around on the field, what are you going to go do? Well, I need to go get stronger. Okay, well, you're gonna go train hard. Or I'm running out of, I'm fatiguing early. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna run more laps. The same idea. I really was constantly reading it. And what was funny is my siblings at the time would be on the beach in the summer. They'd be like, "What are you reading?" And it would tease me like, "Oh, you really know how to have a good time. Like you're reading like a sales book on vacation." It's just what I did. I was self-improvement. And again, I was young. I was 23. So that really helped me. It really helped me build a foundation. And I'll get into like sales methodologies in maybe another video. And I know there's a billion videos out there. People talk about this one, that one, the other. But I'll talk about like the real world and what really works for me and my type of personality. So then really what the tipping point for me, and I still use this today when I teach salespeople, when we onboard people, I like to nose my way into the training conference room and talk about this stuff. But my next door neighbor, my cubicle next door neighbor, was about 10 years older than me. So he had that many more years sales experience. He was newer to the company. Like he started, like he was the newest guy. After he got ramped up and everything, he was one of the top guys very quickly. And he had a very similar personality to me, easygoing, likable. Well, you can be the judge of that. And he's constantly, he was constantly on the phone. I could constantly hear him like, okay, well, this will ship. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like and when I say ship, like we were pressing CDs at that point still and shipping them out with a physical manual that was like the size of a phone book. So I was like, so I went to him and I said, hey, his name's John. I think it's safe I can say. I said, hey, John, like, how are you so successful? And, I was like, I sit next to you and I hear all this stuff and I'm trying to figure out what you're doing. So I learned extremely quickly, it's common information now. It's like sales 101 now. But again, this is the early 2000s. Sales information wasn't readily available like via YouTube. You couldn't watch like self-help videos the way you can today and all. So the first thing he talked about is he figured out, and now it's like, again, it's scientific. He figured out he needed somewhere around 8 touch points with regular cadence with his prospects to get them to even talk to him. I said, okay, so 8 touch points. So what is it? So he was like, I do 8 touch points and I reach out every 3 days until I get to the 8th touch point. Then I start over again in 30 days. And I don't stop until they either tell me to go pound sand or they take my call or they respond to me in some way. And I was like, okay. And then I said, well, like, what do you say in your voicemail? He said, don't leave the same voicemail every single time. Say something different. Say something relevant to them. Like, he's like, go on Google. And again, this is early 2000s, so like we're still a little limited here with what's out there. That's okay. And build off of the previous voice message onto the next one. So eventually your voice becomes a brand. Not an obnoxious brand, one that brings value. And value by being relevant to them. He's like, knock off, don't start talking about features and stuff on these calls. But if you go to their website and you see that they only offer FedEx, mention to them, why limit your options to your customers? Would shipping be easier for you if you could offer all of them? Things like that. That's just an example. Maybe their website's limited to just tie in with FedEx. Again, it's early 2000s. So I started doing this. And again, you have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to listen, and you can't be so nose in the air that like your way or the highway. And if you change, you admit that you stink. Well, yeah, you do stink. The numbers don't lie. And the people I have respect for, who, whether it's in business or in real life, who can change to be successful. And the combination of me changing that mentality and I am a very organized, structured person, so this fit right up my alley. Like, I had now a structured way to reach out to everybody, and I created in our CRM system, which was also the software we used, I created acronyms for myself. And before tools like, say, if you use HubSpot today and you have snippets and all that stuff didn't exist then. I would save different Outlook signatures with different template emails. And I thought that like I came up with that on my own. Like I added to like what he was doing, and I would share with them like, hey, I know like when you leave a voicemail, you also send an email and reinforcing your voicemail. Like, what do you do? He's like, oh, I just go into my sent and I repurpose it. I'm like, well, create a signature for that particular message. And which follow-up that is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever it is, and create an acronym for it. So what would be funny is people would go be looking up a customer record, and it would see a scheduled call or a scheduled task that I had created for the future, and it wouldn't say anything. It would just have a bunch of letters and a number, and it would come to me like, what does this mean? And I'd rattle off whatever it meant. Oh, that's webinar. I'm just trying not like be too specific and give away like really what the company was, or that would be webinar follow-up 3, kind of thing. So I knew on the third touch point, I knew what it was. Like I knew what I had done with the first 2, and that's what I did. And I am not the smartest person out there. I may not be the most original person out there, but I just took the time to listen and knew that somebody was doing something better. They were generous enough to take a few minutes to share how their approach was and what worked for them. I took it, massaged it, made it work for me. That in combination with my sales self-study training, those sales books I referenced, it all came together for me. It took a while, it took a few years, into that job. I ultimately lasted at that job for 6 years before I moved out of state. And I'm really proud of that, because along the way, different stops, I've used that methodology. I've had people come to me. A guy who was a fellow sales rep at one job came to me and said, he's like, whoa, he's like, you make it look easy. It was almost like the full circle. It was like the same 2 people talking again from years ago, except this time I'm the more senior person. And I said, yeah, this is what I do. And he's like, I'm going to implement this. And he did, and he was successful. And I said, don't copy exactly what I'm doing. Maybe in the beginning, yes, but adapt it, make it work for you. Maybe 5 touch points. Because that's actually what the scientific research is based on, is 5 touch points, not 8, but 8 in the industry I was in is what really worked. And maybe if I got better at the messaging or refined it, I could get it down to 5. But 5 typically is, no matter what vertical or market you're in, is 5 touch points minimum. Typically, on average, you need to get someone to respond to you. And yeah, you can do crazy things like fire your customer in the last one, like, oh, you haven't responded to me. It tells me one of 3 things: you're not interested, you've fallen and you can't get up, or you have a better system. I did something to anger you. That line always worked for me. I must have done something to anger you. And people were back, no, you did not anger me. I already have something. And then you kind of use that as a, like, well, how's it going? Or whatever, what are you doing? So bottom line is, if you are passionate about something and you're not good at it, you can find a way to get good by holding yourself accountable and remaining driven. I still look to learn today. I have a guy, like, I'm 2 layers removed from directly having the salespeople report to me, but I interact with them a lot. I go on visits with them. I like to hear what's working for them. And I do start the whole, well, when I was selling, which makes me sound like an old guy, this is my approach. So we talk shop, because I try to stay relevant and still learn from the guys today, and what really works, because people react differently now, or they might. And I think I ultimately knew that while I became a good, I would say I was a really good salesperson. I don't know if I said great earlier, but if I did, I'm going to correct myself. I know great salespeople. We have a bunch of great ones that work for us. I was really good. I went from being poor to really good. And I always knew, even on my way up 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I always knew I would be a better coach / manager than a salesperson, because I feel like I know how to get through to people. And I've had some really good success stories of people underneath me. Now, it takes the right person to work hard and do all those things, but if they have that special thing in them, and all you need to do is direct them, share your experience, help them implement it, they're going to be great. And then ultimately, when I got into the business side of things, I always felt that I would be a better business person than a salesperson. It's also, to me, more enjoyable because it's big picture, but that's just a little background. So if you're thinking about a career in sales, whether it's a stepping stone long term into the business side of things, or you just generally love sales, but you don't know where to start, look, get your first sales job and be willing to learn from everyone around you and then make it your own. And never stop learning and never stop evolving and changing. Don't be afraid to change. So feel free to comment, and I would love to hear from you, whether you're the world's greatest salesperson or the world's worst salesperson. Certainly would love to hear from you and hear your story, and certainly open to any feedback or anything I can help you with. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you next time.